kid's mum and her sister got lost, and they took a wrong turn and ended up at Gunnamatta Beach. They'd asked a couple of questions at the gate, you know, is this patrolled beach, is it safe for children? And on both they were told yes. They didn't realise there was a beach further down. I knew this area. I knew this beach, I knew to stay away from it. I knew how dangerous this beach was. So my kids were Emma, Luke, Amy, Ben, Molly, Connor and Cameron. And then there was Mary's sister Sharon, and there was Catherine, Belinda, James and Gary. From what was said to me, there was a big sandbar. They thought that was a perfect place for the boogie boards, the waves weren't too big. What they didn't realise was there was a rip operating next to it. One moment they were towing Molly on a boogie board and Ben was nearby. Next moment they were hit by a big wave and they were washed into those rips. And it didn't take long. It didn't take long for them to get out past the breakers. It was only when Luke arrived and said, "Where are they?" to James, and he said, "They're gone, they're out there." So they actually headed off to the surf club, which is about 600 metres down, further down the beach. So they come out on the ducks, the surf lifesavers. Ben was flown to the Children's Hospital. He was put on life support, and the next day I had to make that decision to turn his life support off. So Ben went on to become an organ donor. On that day, we lost 4. I lost my son Ben and my daughter Molly, and lost 2 nieces, Catherine and Belinda. They were never recovered. You know, people will say that time heals. No, time will teach you to live with it. Every time I hear of another drowning, of people being caught in a rip, I just think it's enough, it's enough. It's time now to draw the line. It's time to stop people from entering these rips. If you don't know the area, you don't know the risk, you don't know how to spot a rip, don't be there. It's as simple as that.
Hit you with some statistics. We know that about 96% of Australians know they should swim between the red and yellow flags, but 40% sometimes don't. Now that's a problem, because we also know that at any given time in Australia, there's about 17,000 rips operating on our beaches. So if you don't know how to spot a rip, which most Australians don't, that's a real problem. Another thing is that there's 11,000 beaches in Australia, which is great, except that only 4% are actually patrolled by lifesavers and lifeguards. So if you don't know how to spot a rip and you're swimming on an unpatrolled beach, there's a good chance you might get stuck in one. So what are rip currents? It's a really good question. Well, rips are all about breaking waves. If there's no waves breaking, there's no rips. But when waves do break, they break in shallow water. And the white water you see is water that's being pushed towards the beach and it piles up. Rips are one way to get that extra water piling up at the beach back offshore. And most rips flow offshore in deeper channels between the shallower sandbars. And they exist to get that extra water back offshore. There's some myths and misconceptions about rips. One is that rips will pull you under. Well, they don't. There's no such thing as an undertow, and rips definitely don't pull you under the water. The second is that rips are often called rip tides. Well, they're not a tide. A tide is a wave that goes up and down during the day. Rips are currents that flow pretty steady. The third is that rips will take you way out to sea. Well, the truth is, they don't. Basically, rips are strong, narrow currents that flow from the shoreline out towards the breaking waves. So, if the waves are breaking about 50 meters offshore, that's about how far the rip will take you. The best way to spot rips is to look for nice dark gaps going out through the surf. So right here, we've got a nice dark gap. It almost looks like a road or a path going out to the surf, and that's the rip. Over here, we've got a shallow sandbar. On the other side of the rip, there's another shallow sandbar. That makes the waves break. All that white water piles up on the beach, starts flowing along the beach, and then it turns offshore and goes out in the rip. And that's how you spot a rip.
Rip currents can be a lot harder to find, and you need to spend a bit more time looking for them. If you're swimming at a patrolled location, there are always safety signs pointing out the dangerous currents, and you should avoid the water around those signs.
The best way to avoid one of the thousands of rip currents on Australian beaches is to swim at a patrolled location between the red and yellow flags. However, if you find yourself caught in a rip, stay calm. The rip won't pull you under. It's panic and exhaustion that are the main causes of drowning. You can survive a rip by knowing your options. If the beach is patrolled or there are other people around, raise your arm and call out to attract attention. You may be rescued. If you haven't been seen, float with the rip. Some rips will carry you back to shore. Or try swimming parallel to the beach or towards the breaking waves. Use the breaking waves to help you in. Stay calm. Reassess your situation. If what you're doing isn't working, try one of the other options until you're rescued or returned to shore. Never try to swim against a rip. Remember, the best way to beat a rip is to swim at a patrolled beach between the red and yellow flags. Don't risk the rip. Visit beachsafe.org.au or download the app to find out more about rips.